Good evening. Thank you everybody for joining in person and to all those online. Thank you for joining. I would like to start off by thanking Rabbi Yehoshua from Irgun Torah for all the incredible shiurim, daily shiurim, weekly shiurim, and all the initiatives taking place in Crown Heights. And also Reb Zalman Schneier from Mishkan Moshe, who together already for a couple of summers has been organizing this evening learning here in Crown Condos, Mishkan Moshe, evening learning with supper provided. And for this amazing partnership of Mishkan Moshe and Irgun Torah, where people could come to a nice, cool, comfortable place, learn every night, participate in shiurim on various topics, and enjoy a dinner, perhaps while the family is away. Yeshikayach. May the Eibishter repay both of you and bench you with a lot of nachas from your children, and much continued atzlacha in the avodas hakodesh, which you do. So Reb Zalman Schneier, if anybody knows him, he's quite pushy, and he called me a couple of days ago and pushed me to speak tonight on the topic of practical tips every parent should know to prepare their child for school. So I will attempt to do exactly that. I do want to also thank various mechanchim, teachers who I work with, fellow menalim, therapists who I work with over the last few days since I was asked to present on this topic. Whoever I was talking to said maybe you have something to add, and a lot of the points that I will mention tonight were mentioned to me by mechanchim that I've been in touch with, and thank you for your input. It's greatly appreciated. So I want to start off with one of my favorite Dvar Torah that I learned many years ago, and of course I looked it up again now before I share it with you to make sure I have it accurate. And it's very, very important to understand the point of this Dvar Torah, and then the rest of tonight's share will be easy and self-understood after that. So we know that during Bayis Sheni, the Yidden went through the story of Chanukah, and the Yevanim came, and they were metame the Beis HaMikdash, and Chashmonaim waged war. And they came back to the Beis HaMikdash, and they saw a horrible sight. Everything was destroyed, everything was broken, all the oil was tamei. They wanted to light the menorah that night, and as we know the story goes, there was no pure oil. There was no shemen zayis zach, there was no pure oil with the stempel of the Kohen Gadol that they were able to light. And the oil in the Beis HaMikdash needed to be tahor, so they were not able to light the menorah. But we know that there was a nes. It's called Nes de Pach HaShemen. According to some opinions, that's why we celebrate the first day of Hanukkah, even though the nes was really only for 7 nights, because one jug of oil burned for 8 nights, but one night was natural, right? So it's Nes de Pach HaShemen. It was a great miracle that one little jug of oil remained pure, untouched, and available to the Chashmonaim to be able to light the menorah that first night when they were being mechanech the Beis HaMikdash from new to light a shemen zayis zach, a tahor dik shemen zayis. And that's what happened, and that's what Chanukah is. So the question is, and this is a famous question from the Rabbi Yehoshua in Shabbos Daf Chaf Aleph, in the Sugya of Chanukah, and the Rabbi Yehoshua asks the following question: why did Hashem have to make this miracle? It was needless. Especially we know that Hashem doesn't make miracles for no reason. Which means that Hashem doesn't do miracles in vain, only does a miracle if it's needed. There's a machlekes if Tumah is hutra b'tzibur or dechuya b'tzibur, which means that when you're dealing with a tzibur, with a klal, with a community, there's a machlekes if you don't have a tahor dika option, if you could use something that's tamei. And according to both opinions of this machlekes, the answer is yes, you can. One opinion says there's tuma dechuya b'tzibur, it's b'diavad. If you have no choice, there's no tahor dika option. If it's for a tzibur, you could use something that's tamei. And another opinion even holds that tuma hutra b'tzibur, it's totally mutter, it's totally permissible, it's okay. So the Rabbi Yehoshua asks this very famous question: why did Hashem have to make this nes, the nes the Pach HaShemen, and not just that they should find the Pach HaShemen, the whole nes that the menorah had to burn for 8 nights, for what? They could have just lived tamei dika oil, the first night, the second night, the third night, until we know it takes 8 days, they'll have tahor oil, then they'll start using tahor dika oil. They could have used tamei dika oil, it's totally allowed according to all opinions. Why the nes? So the Rabbi Yehoshua gives his famous answer, and his famous answer is, Laharis chibason shel Yisrael, the Eibishter wanted to show to him how dear the Yidden were to him, how much Hashem loved us, loved the Yidden, the Chashmonaim, they went on Mesiras Nefesh against all odds. Everybody was assimilating, they kept Yiddishkeit. The Eibishter wanted to, so to say, repay us, show us the love that the Eibishter has for the Yidden, and the Eibishter performed this Nes for us. That's why we have the Nes of Chanukah. That's the Pnei Yeshua's answer. But Rabbi Yosef Engel, in his Sefer Gilyoni HaShas, also on Shabbos Daf Chaf Aleph, he gives a different answer to this Pnei Yeshua's question. And his answer, I'd like to read his answer, and we will elaborate. Rabbi Yosef Engel in Gilyoni HaShas says as follows, and I quote, Nira, the kivan shahaya os Chanukas habayis, ki demuchach mima shekayrim es karbonis hanasiyim b'Chanukah, v'hi haschala b'roish l'chol haba acharav, l'chein hutzrach sheyiyeh b'taro gemura, v'loi b'dechias taro. Rabbi Yosef Engel is essentially saying as follows, that he believes, because that first night that they were lighting the menorah, they were being mechanech, they were inaugurating the Beis HaMikdash from new, because Beis HaMikdash was destroyed and desecrated up until that point. So they were being mechanech, they were starting off. Mechanech means when you're starting off, when you're inaugurating. They were being mechanech the Beis HaMikdash. And he says, proof is from the fact that which Kriyas HaTorah do we read in Chanukah? We read about the karbanis that the Nesiim brought by the Chanukah HaMishkan. So Chanukah was all about being mechanech the Beis HaMikdash. Therefore, he says, V'hi haschala v'roish l'chol haba acharov. That first night is a haschala, it's a roish, it's the head, it's the beginning of everything that's going to come. It's the beginning of a future. Therefore, l'chein hutzrach sheyiyeh b'tara gemara. It was necessary, it was essential that the menorah that night be lit with pure 100% tahara gemura, are his words. V'loi b'dechias tahara, not to use any heter, the tumah tchuya b'tzibur, or not even tumah hutra b'tzibur. Because it was the first night and we're relighting the menorah for the first time and being mechanech the Beis HaMikdash, when you start something off, you have to do it right. That's the message. When you start something off, you must do it right. And he brings rayas to this concept that al pi Torah, and a halacha concept that al pi Torah, when something is a beginning, when something's a first, it's not just a beginning. It's a first, it's an ikr, it's a roish, it's a head to everything, to the whole future that comes after that, day one. And he brings a couple of rayas from Gemara and Rishonim, and I'll bring one of them just to bring out this point and to make it geshmach, and then we can start for the nice Dvar Torah. So we all know that when the Yidden built the Mishkan, the first 7 days were called the Shivas Yimei HaMiloyim, where Moshe Rabbeinu himself did the Avodah to get the Mishkan up and running, and he was showing Aaron HaKohen and his sons how to do the Avodah in the Beis HaMikdash. Then comes Vayihi B'Yom HaShmini, it comes the 8th day. Shivas Yimei HaMiloyim are complete. Today is the big day for the Yidden. Aaron HaKohen, he's the Kohen Gadol. Aaron HaKohen has 4 sons, Nadav, Avihu, Elazar, and Isamar. Aaron HaKohen and his 4 sons, today's day 1 for them to start doing the work, the Avodah in the Mishkan. Moshe Rabbeinu is still with them to help them, he's teaching them, but they start doing the Avodah. Moshe Rabbeinu goes, and Vayihi B'Yom HaShmini, if you open up a Chumash, you read Parshat Shmini, first couple of psukim, everything's going fine, and they do this, and they shech this, and they spray this, and they go into the Avodah together, and everything is going great. This is a huge day for Klal Yisrael. Shivas Yimei HaMiloyim are over, it's Rosh Chodesh Nisan, the Kohanim, the 4 Kohanim, and their Kohen Gadol, their father, are starting to be mechanech the Mishkan. Until something went wrong. A couple of psukim in to Parshat Shmini, we know that Nadav and Avihu, they brought Ketores when they were not meant to, and they passed away, they were killed by the Eibishter for that Avirah. Now, Nadav and Avihu were 2 brothers. They had 2 other brothers, Elazar and Isamar. Now, Elazar and Isamar just lost their brother. It's the first day of work. Elazar and Isamar just lost their brother. Aaron HaKohen just lost his son. So what should they do? So we know a Kohen Gadol is not allowed to be Metame L'meis, no matter what, no matter when, no matter who. He can never be Metame to Ameis, Kohen Gadol. A Kohen Hedyot could be Metame to Ameis. A Kohen Hedyot has 7 kravim that he's allowed to be Metame to. A father, a mother, a spouse, his wife, and brother, sister, and son or daughter. There are 7 kravim that he's allowed to be Metame to. Elazar and Isamar just lost their brother, they're a Kohen Hedyot. But what does it say in the pasuk? I'll read the psukim. Vayomer, and I'll translate afterwards. Vayomer Moshe el Aaron, u'Elazar u'Isamar banav, Rosheichem al tifra'u, u'vikdeichem lo sifrenu. I'll skip some words. V'acheichem kol beis Yisrael yivchus asreifa, u'mipesach el hamoed lo yseitzu. Basically, they got clear instructions from Moshe Rabbeinu, from the Eibishter, that Elazar the summer, I know you just lost your brother, you're not going to the Levaya, you're not tearing your clothing, you're not growing your hair, you're not doing any shiva any avelos, you cannot go to your brother's Levaya, don't leave the Mishkan, continue doing the Helika Arbi, the Avodah of the Mishkan. The question is why? They're a Kain Hedyet. This is one of the 7 relatives, it's their brother, they should be able to. So the Das Gein in Ubali Ataisis, in Ubekreis Ketelis, you can see the Das Gein in Ubali Ataisis, he asks this question, he says, V'tema. V'tema means it's a wonder. Why, Taka, could they not go be matami to their brothers? And he asks even more. The Das Genim asks even more. There's a medrash that says as follows. In Teiras Kainim, the medrash Teiras Kainim, on this pasuk, it says, B'krei HaKadosh, and it says as follows. The words of the medrash I quote, Mikan she'ein ha'kainim matami l'meisim. From here we learn out that Kainim cannot be matami tamis. So that's extra strange. First of all, we know that from somewhere else. There's a clear pasuk in the Torah that says, and I quote, "L'nefesh le'yitana ba'amov," that a Kainim is not allowed to be matami to any random person. So what do you mean, "Mikan she'ein ha'kainim matami l'meisim"? Second of all, it's not even true. A Kayin could be matami l'meisim to one of the 7 relatives he made. So first of all, we have to understand why does the Torah tell Elazar or Summer, why did the Mishra tell them not to go to their brother's Levaya, not to do any shiva, anything. Second of all, we have to understand, what does the Medrash say from here? Mikan she'ina kainim matami l'meisim. First of all, we learned this somewhere else, and it's not even true. They could, a Kayin had it's allowed to be matami to our brother. This is the question of the Das Gein and the Valley Ataisvis, and they say it's the Tema, it's a great wonder. So the Das Genim answers as follows, and I quote, V'yesh leimer, dehad deka amar mikan shehakainim im etam l'meisim, hainu kayanim hedyoitim b'yoim moshchasam, she'ein metamim l'kroivim, sheyesh lahem din kayanim gedolim. Das Genim of Bali Taisus says, what the Medrash over here said that a kain is not allowed to be metami to a relative, and when the Eibishter tells Elazar in the summer, because a kayin, when he's day 1 on the job, when it's first day on the job, he's not allowed to be matami l'kroivim. He has a special din. He doesn't have the din of a kayin hedyet. On day 1, on that kayin, even though he's a kayin hedyet, he's not Aaron a kayin, he's one of the sons. When he goes to work, it's his first day. Could you imagine? His first day after they built the Mishkan, everything, all the preparation, he's finally doing the Avodah. He has a din of a Kayin Gadol for his first day. And all Kainim in any future generations, according to this Lahalacha, if it's their first day at work, it's B'yayim Shchasam, they have a din like a Kayin Gadol. So this is one of the Rishayim that Rabbi Yosef Engel brings as a raya to that point of his answer, that when you're starting something off, you have to do it not just well, not just good. When you start something off, you got to do it 100% tahara gemura, to use the words of Rabbi Yosef Engel. Or like the Das Gein of Bali Taisus says, you have to do it like a Kayin Gadol. You got to do it super duper, over the top, the best way possible. And Rabbi Yosef Engel brings other answers. So other proofs to this idea, to this message. In Chassidus, we also find very often this theme that when you're starting something off, it's not just the beginning. When it's Rosh, it's called Rosh, Rishain, it's called the Iker. We all know Rosh Hashanah is coming up. Every child learns this in school. It's not called Techilas Hashanah at the beginning of the year, which means it's day 1 of 354 days. It's not just day 1, it's Rosh Hashanah, it's the head of the year. Just like your head is not just the beginning of your body, it's the head of your body. Controls your body, has an effect in your body the entire time. Rosh Hashanah has an effect in the entire year, and Rosh Chodesh is the same thing. And we see in Chassidus this theme very often, that when something is the beginning, it's a Rosh, V'Rishain, V'Ikr, you can't play around with it. There's a sikha of the Rebbe, look at the sikha scale Gimel, where the Rebbe talks about the carbon tamid, which is brought every single morning. So tamid, the word tamid can have really a couple of meanings. It can mean always, it can mean constantly. So the carbon tamid, so usually we understand the carbon tamid that it was a constant carbon because it was brought every single morning. So there was a tamid shel shachar, tamid shel bein arbayim, so it gets the name tamid because every single day you bring the carbon tamid. But the Rebbe actually explains along this theme that the reason why it's called a carbon tamid is because since that's how they started the morning in the Beis Hamikdash, that started the Avodah, that carbon had an effect on the whole day because that's how you started your day. So again, here you see the same thing. It's called the carbon tamid because it is tamid. Because the effect of the carbon tamid was constant, continuous, uninterrupted every single minute of the day. It's a carbon tamid. And in Chassidus, we know you go to Farbrengens about how you go to sleep. and how you wake up, what kind of effect it's going to have on you. And Shabbos Bereshis, we all know the famous quote, V'imeshtaltzechavek Shabbos Bereshis. So this theme from Rabbi Yosef Engel, and from the Daskenim of Ali Taisus and Chassidus and Lakut Kesiches, Mashpiyim, this is a well-known theme. That when you start something off, you have to do it b'tara gemura. Think about it. The Eibishter made a nest for no reason, we may say. Didn't have to make the nest. But the Eibishter made the nest, yes, because we're starting off the Chanukah Sabayas. It has to be done super well. Lazar in the summer, we're not allowed to go to their own brother's levaya. Think about that for a minute. Not allowed to do any avelos, things for their brother, because it was their first day of the avodah, they had to do it right. So, if there's one message that I want to share tonight before I get to the practical tips that I was asked to share, and all these practical tips will now be just a natural effect of this understanding. But this understanding that, and this is, if I was able to impart one thing tonight, it's this, that when we start something off, we have to do it 100% correctly. And I'll elaborate for a minute. There are some things that throughout the school year, it could be okay, or maybe not okay, but it can happen. Realistically, it does happen, it will happen, it happens, and perhaps it could be okay. I don't mean to give permission or to say it's okay to do whatever I'm about to say. Perhaps it's not okay. In other words, you should try to avoid these situations. But they happen. I'll give some examples. Throughout the school year, it can happen that a child comes late to school. He can come late excused, he has a great reason, he has his brother's bris that morning, he can come late unexcused. These things happen. They happen, it could be okay. Obviously, excuse is okay, right? It can happen that the family must go away for Shabbos, and they're going to have to miss yeshiva on Friday, leaving an hour early, coming back Sunday late. It could happen. There could be circumstances where the family must get away. A simcha, a grandfather who's been in Australia for the last 2 years, locked up, and finally came to the United States. There's situations. It could happen that you could go through times in your year where you're overdue for your haircut. You just didn't get to the barber yet, but you're a little bit overdue for the haircut. It can happen that you need to schedule doctor appointments, and it has to be during school hours. It can happen that you run out of supplies. Your pencil and your lead pencil ended, or your highlighter dried up, or one of your supplies ran out. It could happen. It could happen you didn't have a good night's sleep the night before. It could happen that you took your safer home to study for a test, but whoops, you left it in school and at home that night. So the next day you're missing your safer in yeshiva. It can happen that your dress code is not perfect because your only good pair of shoes you got stuck in a downpour last night. You need to let it dry, and while you're letting it dry, you only have your sneakers from camp, and they don't exactly fit the school's dress code. All these things I'm describing to you could happen. Some of them it's okay for it to happen. They're unavoidable. Try to avoid them, fine. They happen throughout the whole year. But in the beginning of the year, when we're starting off, when it's the Chanukah Sabayas for this helmet for this year in yeshiva, these things can't happen. There's no such thing you come late the first day of yeshiva. There's no such thing you don't have your haircut, you don't have your scarf, you don't have your supplies. It's affecting your whole year. During the year, it's okay. It can happen. During the year, you could light Tamei oil in the Beis HaMikdash if you need them, if that situation arises. During the year, Kain Edit could go to his brother's levaya, but not the first day, not the first week, not when you're starting something off. So that's really the message. All the children in Crown Heights are Baruch Hashem and Mirz Hashem starting yeshiva next week. Us as parents, as the Mechanchim, it's our job that our first week of yeshiva be the most over the top, super well planned and executed week to give them a great start and give them a fighting chance to succeed for the rest of the year. But you can't start on the left foot. So now to the part that I was asked to speak about on practical tips. I hope to cover everything. I obviously won't. I'll try. And I'll talk a little bit about what to do before school. Some of these things are common sense, very obvious, but I put together a list. What to do before school. I'm going to talk about routines. I'm going to talk about the day before school. I'll talk about the first day of school, and I'll also talk about some general points. So before school. Before school, this is easy, quick to say this part. Prepare. There is preparation that has to happen for school. Number one, get the right svarim. Now let's take a moment to speak about that. A child will learn much better and respect school more and do better in his learning if he has a nice sefer. If you give him some ripped up sefer that his 20-year-old brother used many years ago and it's not colored on the front cover, or it's missing a cover and it's scribbled on, it's not the same. You wouldn't let him go to his nephew's upshrinish with a shirt that's dirty, so why could he go to school with a sefer that looks that way? So it's expensive for him, and everybody's on a tight budget, so perhaps you have some used svarim that are in good condition. By all means, use them. But if you don't, you got to get a nice sefer, you got to buy a new one. That excitement that the child has is,
new sefer does it, the old sefer ruins it. By the way, when you're shopping for Sfarim, keep in mind, you don't want situations where he has to bring it home to study and take it back to yeshiva and bring it home and it's forgotten. I know there's a time that he needed it at home and he forgot it in school. There's a time that he needed it at school and forgot it at home. Perhaps consider buying a second sefer of that particular sefer. Supplies, get all the supplies. The school sends out a handbook or a list of supplies. Get all the supplies in advance. Can't come to school the first day. My mother said we're getting it next week. The first day, you gotta have all your supplies. Haircut. You don't go to a chasana, you don't go to Rosh Hashanah, you don't go to Pesach without a haircut. First day of school, you come with a fresh haircut. Dress code. Come with the proper dress code the first day. This happens often, I should add unfortunately. Boys do not have I can say from boys, I work in a boys' school. So boys don't have the proper shoes. And they say, my mother said that after Tisha we're gonna get new shoes now, we're still gonna use up the sneakers that we got in the summer. If that's your plan, that's a very good plan, and to be economical, that's great. Buy sneakers that match the dress code. But you can't buy sneakers that don't match the dress code and say, for the first month of school, it's okay to wear them. No, maybe Taka in the middle of Shvat, the day that his school shoes are ruined, he has one day that he has no shoes, he'll come with those white sneakers with a note, sorry, my son is not wearing the proper shoes today, his other shoes are wet, tomorrow he'll be back, back on track. Fine, not the first day of school. What kind of message is that? It's against everything we started off with. So don't delay it. Come with all the svarim, all the supplies, haircut, proper dress code, proper everything. And don't delay it and have it all at the beginning of the year. That's number one. That's about just some preparation that we need to do. It's one outing on the avenue or online, you buy what you need. Then there's routines. So children are going up a grade right now. Third graders becoming a fourth grader, seventh graders becoming an eighth grader. It's quite common for children's bedtime to change, right? When they're younger, it could be 7:30, then it could become 7:45, then it could become 8:30. Here's one thing I guarantee you. Nobody goes to sleep on time by mistake. You only go to sleep on time if you plan to go to sleep on time. And what does on time mean? Here's another thing I guarantee you. You cannot go to sleep on time if you never established the bedtime. And unfortunately, there are many children, not just they don't go to sleep on time, and sometimes on a nightly basis, they don't even have a bedtime. So of course they don't go to sleep on time. There's no on time for them. It's like, if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. So anytime they go to sleep is gonna be on time for them. They don't even have a bedtime. So right now is a chance for a husband and wife to sit down and think about their children and say, okay, this year our little Yankel is going from 3rd to 4th grade, so we're moving his bedtime from 7:45 to 8, or 8 to 8:15, whatever works for him. But establish that bedtime, because if you don't establish a bedtime, it will never happen. Even when we establish a bedtime, all parents know it's very difficult to get your kids in bed every time. It's not going to happen every single night. But now, it's the beginning of the year, you've got to do it right. So first of all, establish what is the bedtime for your children. Think about it now. You're not going to make it up properly that night before school. It's not going to happen. What is the bedtime you want your children to have? Start enforcing the bedtime. This month's a Shabbos already. You can't maybe enforce the bedtime, but make it an early night. It's not a time for outing this month's a Shabbos. And starting this Sunday night, I recommend that all students start going to sleep at their normal bedtime. Boys' schools are starting Tuesday, so you get Sunday night and Monday night, and that's it. So maybe some schools are starting Wednesday, or younger boys or the girls, so there's not many nights to get the routine going. So Sunday night has to be bedtime. And you gotta establish the bedtime first. In my opinion, sharing what I believe, and others as well, the latest a family should come back from the country, for any families that are upstate, the latest a family should come back from the country is early Sunday afternoon. After that, it's late already. Early Sunday afternoon, you arrive back in Karnai, it's 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, maybe 3 o'clock. You unpack. It's a huge adjustment going from the free country, bungalow colony into your house. You gotta unpack, you gotta restock, you gotta go shopping, you gotta go get the supplies, you gotta go get the svarim. Remember, Sunday night is already normal bedtime, right? You gotta have a normal bedtime. Then the next day, you have to also establish a wake time. Monday, they should already get up at a normal time. Maybe not as early as school would require, but if they're getting up very late now in the summer, especially this week between camp and school, Monday, go to sleep early Sunday night, get up already a little earlier Monday. So then Tuesday, it's less of a jump on them. So I believe the families should return from the country the latest. I know families who come back even before Shabbos, but I believe the latest the family should come back is early Sunday afternoon. If you come back from the country on Monday night, or Tuesday morning. And people do that. How in the world could the Talmud be successful in yeshiva? It's such a huge transition. In the country, they're free, and they're swimming, and they're with their friends, and there's zero structure, and they're going to school, which is super structured. School is all about structure, and routines, and procedures. And it's just such a you're not really giving them a chance. It's not fair to the children. Last night, they were at a late night swim with their friends in the pool. Now they're in yeshiva learning. It's too much, too quick. Sunday afternoon, the latest to come back. That's my take. Let's talk a little bit about like the day before school. So, first of all, the rule is, so you hear to anytime you go to these courses or webinars, the rule is preparation is power. So the more you prepared for any event, the more powerful you are, the more class you have to conquer and do that event well. So it's time to prepare for school, and now is the last day, it's the day before school. There are many children who have a problem with transitioning. Anytime they have a transition, they're used to one thing, they're going to a new setting, a new system, it is difficult for them. I hear that from others all the time. My son has a hard time transitioning, and it's true. There are many children who have anxiety, they're anxious. All kinds of anxieties. Starting a new year in school could be highly anxious for them. A child who usually does not display any anxiousness, starting school, he can become anxious. Guess what? Many parents are anxious about their child's first day in school. So we know the challenge. Transition could be tough for some kids, but there are kids that it's not a problem. There are many kids who are in general very anxious, so for sure this is a very stressful week for them. And there are many kids who are usually not anxious, but tonight they will be. And there are many parents who are anxious. It's going to be with the right class, with the right teacher, with the right kids, all the worries that are out there. So the first thing I would say is that we need to be calm ourselves as parents. If we're calm ourselves, we have a positive attitude, and we show, even if we're anxious, we hide it. And we show that we're excited about school starting, and we make sure that our home is super calm that day. It could happen that our home is not calm, but that day, everything is calm, no anxiousness from the parents are displayed. Then you can help your child. The worst thing is when a child has a condition or a situation and we just label them and we're satisfied that it's labeled. So, oh, my son, he has anxiety, boom, so now he can be anxious today? No, he has anxiety. Now we have to help him. There's things we could do and should do this first day before school, this last day before school, to make that transition and to make that anxiousness just be less. You might not be able to eliminate it. So we can't just label him and say he's anxious, oh, he's very hard at transitioning. We have to know that, only to know what we should do about it. Number one is, we gotta be calm. We gotta talk about yeshiva, a positive, exciting attitude. The Lysa say of that is, don't impose your own anxiety on your children. Unfortunately, that happens. A parent can be anxious, they're talking about it, they're displaying it, and the child truly would have not been anxious, but it's because they're near the anxious parent, they start becoming anxious. So that anxiousness is like nurtured. We certainly don't want to do that. Very important to speak about your child's school respectfully in front of your children. You might have an issue with your child's school, you might wish that something was better, and that's totally normal. But in front of your child, you have to talk about the yeshiva, about the school, in the most respectful way. How could they have respect for their teacher, principal, and the school if you don't? So they only have to hear the most positive things coming from the parent about the school. Your child may have concerns. Let them speak it out, because that's the best way to calm them down. You could validate their concerns, and then you could talk about it. You should plan what your first day of school will look like, and we'll talk about the first days soon, but there should be a plan of what your first day should look like. And you could speak to your children how kol haschales kashes, Chazal teach us, it's true till today. You could speak to them how beginnings are hard, it's normal for there to be an adjustment. If you use the word adjustment, you're implying that you will adjust. So there's an adjustment that has to be made. You may have a child who's going to have a schedule change. He's going from, let's say, 4th grade to 5th grade, and now he has to come earlier, or 5th grade to 6th grade, now yeshiva lasts longer, so you may have a schedule change. Everybody's having a teacher change, right? They're having a new teacher, not their teacher who was their teacher last year. There are kids who that grade is getting mixed up. There are kids who are being moved to another class without the grade being mixed up. The school wanted that, the parents wanted that. So there's a lot of change going on, but let's call it an adjustment. And we can talk to our children how it's normal the first few days when you go into a new situation to feel this way. There's an adjustment, usually 3, 4, 5 days in, it will be okay. So you can talk about that and help them adjust, help them transition, and calm them down. I would also explain to my child that it's very, very normal to love last year's teacher. May I add all of a sudden. Last year, angry, upset, teacher did this, teacher did that. Mittamol, now they look back, they love their Rebbe from last year, they wish he would be his Rebbe again. And then this year's Rebbe is not the same way, of course, and school is bad. So I would talk to my children about it, how it's very normal to look back. I remember as a kid myself, I always looked back and I loved my teacher from the year before and thought he was amazing. But then when I thought back how the year before was, of course, you always had the tiness and the this, so you could talk about that to your children. If you know that your child is switching classes, being put with new friends, or skipping a grade or anything like that, for sure the conversation has to happen and they need to be prepared. The worst thing is, for a child that I knew that his classes were being switched, and I told the parents and I asked them to speak to the children, when I call his name and he's going with the other class, the wrong class in his mind, you see that look on his face. They don't forgive me, they think I'm at fault, and if they find out, or when they find out their parents were at fault, they do not forgive their parents for that shock that they had that morning when there's a promotions assembly and everybody gets called out, and they weren't called out with their friends, or they were called out with the wrong group, and really this was something planned and thought out, and it's good for the child, and the child had to be spoken to. It's really not fair to them. It's really, really not fair to them. And for the child who's particularly anxious, it's very important to have a plan for the first day of school. What time are you getting up? What are we doing in the morning? What's for breakfast? Are we walking to school? Are we driving to school? Every little thing is going to add to their anxiousness. They can't ask you the night before they go to bed, how am I going to school tomorrow? I'll tell you in the morning, I'm going to discuss it with Tati. You can't do that. This kid's anxious, so that's something that you could have planned. Plan it right now. How are the kids going to school the first day of school? First day of school, different grades, start different time, the bus is not up and running yet. I am at work, I'm not at work, figure it out. Make a plan. Anything that's planned, preparation is power, less anxiety, easier transition, better adjustment for the Talmud. I would also encourage my child, something I hope to remember to do, not about themselves, I would encourage them that if you have a new boy in your class this year, if you have a new boy or new girl in your class this year, think about how they feel and how hard it is for them. I want you're my child, and we value in our family this Taivas, and Abbas Yisrael. I want you to be the one who's nice to the kid, who welcomes the kid, who walks home with the kid, makes sure they're comfortable and they understand everything that's going on, and introduce them to your friends. Be that welcoming kid in your class to the new kid in your class, because that new kid, he's probably having a hard time, or she's probably having a hard time. Now let's talk about the first day of school. The first day of school needs to be celebrated, like Hanukkah. It has to be celebrated. We're starting a new year. You have to be excited. You have to have a great attitude. And we're excited for Nushnas Lamudim. We're proud of our son's yeshiva. We're proud of our daughter's school. We're proud of you that you're going to 5th grade. We're proud of you that you're going to 8th grade. This year you're going to start learning Gemara. Or this year you're going to start learning some other subject and you're growing up already. There has to be that celebration and that excitement. In fact, it's a Hira of the Rebbe that the first day of school must be B'simcha. The Sikha was just shared with me recently. I believe it's Vav El Tavshem Mem Aleph, Shabbos Vav El, and same Kriyas? Shayfin, thank you. And the Rebbe talks about how the first day of school must be the Simcha, and how that Simcha will have an impact on the whole year. And how just like a child, when he has a Achnasa L'Cheder, there's a cake, and there's honey, and they throw candies at him, and it's a whole celebration. The first day of school is like the Achnasa L'Cheder for every single child starting a new grade in school. And it has to be b'simcha. And I know that all the schools here, they have music, and they have a gift for each child, and a candy, and there's some celebration. And at home, you can celebrate as well. You would celebrate another day in your family if somebody earned a certificate, or if somebody has a birthday. So some type of similar celebration. There could be a special breakfast, there could be a special snack. If they usually go to school by bus, you could drive them that day, you could walk them that day. Perhaps there could be a special supper. You could write a little note to each child and put it in their briefcase. There are a lot of little things you could do just to make the day meaningful, special, and show them how important it is to have a great start to their new year. Also, the first day of school, especially if you're the parent of an anxious child, got to be up before the children. I know it can happen in families that the kids get up very, very early in the morning and they're fine, and they're playing, and they read a book, or whatever they do, and one of the parents is out of the house already, one of the parents are still in their bedroom. So if that's okay for your family that works every day, okay. The first day of school, especially if you have that anxious child, get up early, set your alarm for 6:15, be up ahead of them, be dressed, have your coffee, your brachas, everything. And when they get up, good morning, and show them what you're preparing, and make sure they have their supplies, and show them where everything is, and tell them how we're getting to school. just to be that present for them and calm them down and make that first day an exciting, happy, calmer day, and it will have the best outcomes. If you have a very anxious child, plan distractions. That the first day of school, you're going to get up early and you're going to go to one of the stores and parents that open at 8 a.m. and you're going to go buy a cookie for the first day of school, and then you're going to buy snacks for the whole next week. And you can come up, you can play ball, you can do whatever you want. You figure out something, how that early morning from 7:30 till 9:30, because he only has to be in school for 10, and this kid is anxious, figure out how you can easily distract them if you're in that position where you're able to spend some time with them and go shopping and do something. It can be very, very beneficial for that child. The first day of school is also, if you're not able to do this every day, this is beautiful if a mother or father can do this every day. But if you can't, first day of school, be there when they come home, be there to greet them, to ask them how their first day was, who their teacher is, if they're with their friends, if they're not, what their concerns are, just be a listening ear for them. And of course, you'll validate all their concerns, you'll listen to them. And then one trick, if they come home and they're very upset and everything's bad, one trick is to ask them to scale it from 1 to 10. How bad was it? Friends. My friend's 10, it's the same friends. Oh, teacher, oh, okay, teacher's a 7. And classroom, and they start thinking, oh, it's actually a beautiful classroom, just today this was broken, or the new desks didn't come yet, whatever the situation may be, and you can start putting things into perspective, and they'll usually realize, and hopefully will be the case, that it's not so bad, it's actually rather very good. It's just new to them, there's an adjustment, it's hard, there's a transition, and help them understand that. So be there for them on that first day of school. If they come home from school the first day at 1 p.m., because usually the first day of school is a half a day, and they don't get to see their parents till 5 p.m., it's a little bit not fair to them for the first day of school. Now, here's some just general points. So we went through the understanding of how we must start a year, what to prepare before school, the routines, the day before school, the first day of school, and here's some general points and some perhaps don'ts, some do-nots. Number one, communication is so important. It's of course important on the school's end to communicate everything with the parents, but the parents also have to communicate, and the parents also should communicate important things to the school. There could be all kinds of situations. A parent could be out of town, a parent could be going through, someone in the family is having a medical procedure, some other challenge in the family, and Baruch Hashem, it could be a simcha in the family. Somebody's getting married, somebody's getting engaged, there's a upcharge that afternoon, and this really applies for the whole year. So it's very important, it makes a world of a difference. If the teacher only knew that this kid's mother was out of town now for 3 days, the teacher only knew that this kid had his sister's wedding the Monday night, school started Tuesday, and his sister's wedding was Monday night, and he actually made the effort to come to school the day after his sister's wedding, because his family values that the first day you don't miss no matter what. Maybe during the school year, if it's a day after a wedding, you miss a day of school, but not the first day, right? So the teacher only knew this kind of information. If the principal only knew, if you have a way to communicate it to the principal in advance, or if you know who the teacher is, or the first day, if your teacher gets in touch with you, if you can write a note to the teacher, communicate any major thing happening in the family. It's also important to know there are parents who call the school before the school year starts and they request a certain teacher because their older son had that teacher, their older daughter did, and it's a must, and that one's the best, and my kid has to switch classes, and often the school is able to accommodate requests, and then, good for you. Sometimes the school can't accommodate every single request. So it's important that your child doesn't know that you requested it. Imagine the child knows that my mother wanted me to have that Rebbe and I didn't end up there. Or I was meant to be with those friends, I'm with the wrong friends. So it's kind of like a pass for this year not to be the best year. It kind of delegitimizes the whole year because I'm not where I'm supposed to be. So if you were in touch with the school and if you're hoping for something, if the school confirmed with you and you know already one way or the other, great. But either way, your child shouldn't know about it, especially if it didn't end up happening. It could have a negative effect on them. Also very important for parents to keep in mind, and something you share with your children, it's totally normal and totally encouraged for teachers to be more strict in the beginning of a school year. Because when you're setting it up, you have to do it right. Tanya Perek Aleph, first comes Yira, then comes Ava. A teacher can only be the teacher and have that regimus, and then it's special when he has that Ava the whole year if he started off his year with Yira. So it's very common for a teacher the first week of school not to pull all their fun things out of their bag, and not to play the games, and not to be so kind, and not be kind, but not to be the warmest, not to be the most jolly. And in the first week of school, there's a lot more seriousness, and you're kind of helping them transition from the summer into structure. And teachers are more strict the first day of school, first week of school. So if your child's having a hard time with it, just remind them this is how teachers start off their year, and that's what they're supposed to do. And I'm sure as your teacher gets to know you and you get to know your teacher and the learning gets up and going, I'm sure it's going to be a good year, B'Yirtzeh Hashem. It's also important to mark your calendar for which night is going to be open house and to attend. Even if you don't attend to hear what the teacher has to say, you need to attend for your parent, for your child to see that you went. The child knows that there's open house tonight, and he knows that his parents didn't go. How's he supposed to feel about his teacher in his school? So just for that, for your child to know that you went to open house, you respected that request from school that all parents come to open house, it's very beneficial to the child. Plus, there's plenty to hear from the teacher and what to gain by attending the open house. So mark your calendars. I believe most schools share their open house dates already in their handbook. Mark your calendar and make yourself available for that night if you can. This one's pretty obvious, but I want to mention it. Tuition is always a big topic. It's always a big debate. Tuition's too high, too low. We should be paying it not. Ask for a discount, don't ask. Baruch Hashem, I don't work in that department in yeshiva. But certainly, a parent shouldn't have a tuition conversation in front of their children. They shouldn't, especially if they're a parent who splurges and spends money on other things like Zestiria. But even Taka, they're very conservative, very budgeted. Many families working hard to make ends meet, and they're very, they do it right. And it's tight and it's tough, and I understand. But the conversation shouldn't happen in front of the children. Obviously, another obvious, I'm saying here's where I put the do nots. So obviously, not to discuss your son's teacher or your daughter's teacher in front of your child. If you have somebody you want to speak to your spouse, or the teacher, you heard this, that, or the other, in front of the child, that's a no-no. It's absolutely a no-no. Now I want to take a moment it's not about the beginning of the year, but the beginning of the year is a big part of this. And it's my opportunity to share what I feel about this. So I'm speaking to whoever's here present and online. So I want to take a moment to speak about the concept called class WhatsApp chats. We are a bunch of parents in the class, have a WhatsApp chat without the teacher, without the school. It's a chat where everybody can chat, a lot of chatter going on, and WhatsApp chats. In my opinion, in a way, it's one of the worst things that happened in the last couple of years. The WhatsApp chats are sometimes ridiculous. They're out of control. It harms the parents, makes them anxious for no reason. It harms the children, it harms the school, and it harms the teacher. And I'm going to give you one narish example. And I'm not taking a very sensitive example where the WhatsApp chat is going to discuss a teacher or a principal or people. I'll take a narish example of what a classic class WhatsApp chat could look like. Besides the fact that there's an annual argument from Rosh Chodesh Shvat till Purim if the class should do a meetup and Purim for Shalchmanis, should there be a meetup or should everybody go individually? That's a million wasted nights on that same old question. But besides for that, this is an important one, I'm not going to say besides for it. Your children see your phone. If you lend your child your phone to make a phone call or to do something else, they're going to see the WhatsApp chat. So remember we said not to speak about your child's teacher in front of them, not to talk about tuition. Whatever's there, they're going to see. But I want to give an Irish example. I'm making it up. I didn't actually see this. But I've been enlightened to these type of conversations. A mother will post, or a father, I don't want to pick on the mothers. So a parent will post on the WhatsApp chat, and he or she will write, my son is freezing in the classroom. Anybody else's son is complaining about this? That's how the conversation starts. Now, what's the truth? Not one other kid told their mother a word about being cold in the classroom. Okay, so I got to give you the background. But all other mothers are very upset that the classroom is freezing. It's not okay for a classroom to be freezing. So they go and they ask their son. They don't ask. They don't bring it up in conversation. Or at least some, just I'm describing a scenario. They go over to their son and say, I heard your classroom is freezing. Is it true? Kid says, yeah, it's true. It's actually cold a little bit. So then she goes on the WhatsApp chat, or he, and says, yeah, my son also said he's freezing. And there's a snowball effect, and everybody's freezing. And everybody's upset at the school. It's freezing, winter, and the cold is going around, and it's terrible, and so irresponsible, and what are they thinking, and why can't they have the heat working? Then there's a mother who wants to be very, very positive, and she has a very good approach, very good attitude. She goes on Amazon, she finds a little heater, which is probably dangerous to have in a classroom, and she finds a heater, and she puts a link. She says, how about we buy this heater for our class? And everybody's like, great idea, thank you, Mrs. or Rabbi so-and-so. I'm going to give $10, I'm going to give $10, and they're raising money already for the heater. And everybody on the class chat thinks that the school got a phone call, and the school did not get a phone call. And in fact, the window was left open because the teacher likes when the window's open. If he knows the kids were cold, with one phone call, he might have closed the window. Or the thermostat was adjusted to keep it a little cooler for some reason, and had the teacher or the principal or whoever got the one phone call, it could have been adjusted. So this is a case where there wasn't even an issue b'chlal. It turns into a whole evening of drama on the chat, and it turns into disrespect to the school. And then people who think they're saving the day and they're heroes and they're buying heaters and chipping in and making fundraisers, totally unnecessary. And it just creates a lot of anxiety for the parents. Now, I don't want to give scenarios, but just imagine when the parents are writing something about, did you hear what the teacher did? And did you hear this? And did you hear that? And did you hear what the principal did? And people are seeking information from their children. Their children are fine. They're happy. They didn't say a word. And they say, I heard the teacher did that. Is it true? And they turn to this whole conversation. Everybody's going on the WhatsApp. Now, how do I know about this? Because I go to simchas. I go to bar mitzvahs, weddings. I live in the community, Baruch Hashem. And sometimes I'll meet a parent and they're like, they want to be my friend. They'll say, I'm so sorry for you. You probably got 20 phone calls this week about the heat in that class. I'll be like, what? Like, yeah, you probably got 20 phone calls, all the parents complaining. I said, would you believe me if I didn't get even one phone call? Can't be. I said, I promise you, I didn't get even one phone call about this. And this story, again, I made up a story, just kind of put one together for fun, but to bring that to the point, these class WhatsApp chats, they could be positive, like anything in this world. You could use it out in a good way, help a kid, a class mother who had a baby, and another kid who came from out of town, and encourage your children to be welcoming. Beautiful things could happen, of course. But the nature of them is very often they go south, they go negative, they go sour very quickly, and it doesn't even help. Nobody picked up the phone to the teacher, to the principal. Nobody spoke to their child properly about it. Everybody feels like they're doing something about it because they all posted about it, and nothing happened. So the child lost out, the teacher lost out, the parents lost out, the school lost out, and nobody was helped. If it was up to me, all the class WhatsApp chats should be closed down. But I know that's not realistic. So what I'm asking is, what I want to encourage is to keep your class chats positive, and if you ever have any grievance or something, don't post it. Call the teacher, call the principal. Reach out to another mother you think could be helpful to you. And use the chat, taka to plan your Purim meetup. That's fine. But be smart about it. And remember, whatever you post on that chat, the children will see it. And if not your child, because you're very careful and your phone has a password that your child you think doesn't know, that's fine. But the other child in the class saw it anyway, and he will report in school what you posted. So kid will come to school and say, I saw your mother wrote on the chat, etc. So it could be really ridiculous. So I don't want to end off with all the do nots, even though that was the way I set up this presentation. I just want to end off as follows. From my experience, I want to end off with something positive. All the teachers that I work with, all the teachers that I got to know, all the teachers that my children was able to have in the local schools here in Crown Heights, all the teachers mean well. All the teachers want to do a good job. All the teachers want your children to be happy. Every single teacher wants you, the parents, to be happy. They mean well. Could a mistake happen? Yes. Could a misunderstanding happen? For sure. Could a miscommunication happen? Absolutely. Don't go crazy. Address it properly. Be respectful. Be kind. You called the teacher. You thank them for all their hard work. You think they went to school wanting to hurt your child, hurt their feelings, or to be a little sarcastic and the child took it wrong? Of course not. Of course not. But the teacher could know that perhaps something happened, their child feels hurt, just good for him to know. Or maybe he'll be more careful about something, whatever the situation is. Call up, be a mensch, be respectful. It's your child's mechanech, it's your child's moral, it's your child's rebbe, it's your child's principal. I don't think anybody who's in chinuch means bad. I don't think so. They can get all mean well, they're all trying hard, no one's perfect. Situations can go a little out of hand, and I've had many times where parents called, and I was able to clarify something for them. Because they were respectful, they called and asked a clarifying question, and I was able to answer it, and then they had a whole new perspective on the event, and they actually said, oh, thank you for doing it then. I misunderstood, my son didn't tell me that part. So just pick up the phone or send an email and communicate. And I believe that almost all the issues that you may experience with your children in school throughout the year, with proper communication, they can all be resolved. And finally, daven. You should daven that your children should be successful. We should all daven that our children should grow up in the right way, and have successful years, successful Shnas Limudim, and in Mitzvah Shem should be Zoichet to Mashiach Tzidkenu. May Amen. Thank you for joining.